The sun was setting over the quiet suburban neighborhood of Willow Creek, casting a warm orange glow on its neatly trimmed lawns and cozy homes. For the residents, it was another peaceful evening, but for Marcus Reed, it was anything but routine. Marcus had recently moved into the area, a lifelong dream come true after years of hard work. As the newly appointed chief of police, Marcus was excited to settle into his new home and community. Little did he know, a storm of prejudice was brewing just next door. Marcus had spent the afternoon unloading boxes from his moving truck, dressed in casual clothes and blending into the background. His neighbor, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, an elderly woman with a sharp eye and an even sharper tongue, had been watching him through her curtains since the truck had pulled up. She didn't recognize Marcus and had already made up her mind about him. To her, the sight of a black man moving into her pristine neighborhood was a cause for concern. As Marcus carried a box labeled books up his driveway, Eleanor grabbed her phone and dialed 911. "Yes, there's a suspicious man outside my neighbor's house," she said in a hushed but firm tone. "I think he's trying to break in. Send someone immediately." Unaware of the call, Marcus continued his work, occasionally pausing to admire the serene surroundings. He was proud of how far he'd come, from growing up in a tough neighborhood to achieving his career goals. His joy, however, was short-lived. Within minutes, 2 police cruisers arrived, their lights flashing, shattering the tranquility of the evening. Officers Carter and Blake stepped out, hands on their holsters, their faces stern. Eleanor peeked through her curtains with a satisfied smirk, convinced she had done her civic duty. "Sir, step away from the house," Officer Carter barked. Marcus turned startled but calm. "Good evening, officers. Can I help you?" "Hands where we can see them," Blake ordered, moving closer with his hand resting on his gun. Confused but compliant, Marcus placed the box on the ground and raised his hands. "What's this about?" "We got a call about a possible break-in," Carter said, scanning Marcus suspiciously. "Do you live here?" "Yes, I do. I just moved in today," Marcus replied, keeping his tone steady despite the tension. "Do you have proof of residence?" Blake demanded. Marcus sighed, his patience wearing thin. "My ID and documents are in my bag inside the house. Would you like me to get them?" Before the officers could respond, a third car pulled up. Lieutenant Kate Summers, who worked directly under Marcus at the precinct, stepped out. She had been driving home when she heard the call on the radio and decided to check it out. As soon as she saw Marcus, her face turned pale. "Chief Reed!" she exclaimed, rushing toward him. The 2 officers froze, their expressions shifting from authority to panic. "Chief?" Carter stammered, looking between Marcus and Kate. "That's right," Kate confirmed, glaring at them. "This is Marcus Reed, our new chief of police." The color drained from the officers' faces as they realized their mistake. Carter stuttered, We didn't know, sir. We were responding to a call." Marcus lowered his hands and fixed them with a stern gaze. "And did you bother to ask questions before jumping to conclusions? Or did you just assume based on what you saw?" Before they could answer, Eleanor stepped out of her house, looking triumphant. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. That man doesn't belong here." She stopped mid-sentence as she noticed Kate addressing Marcus as chief. "Mrs. Whitmore," Marcus said, turning to face her, "I'd appreciate it if you didn't call the police on your neighbors without cause." Eleanor's face flushed red. I didn't know you lived here," she stammered. "And yet, instead of introducing yourself, you assumed the worst." Marcus said, calmly but firmly, "I moved into this neighborhood to build a home, not to be treated like a criminal." The officers apologized profusely, and Eleanor retreated back into her house, her smugness replaced by embarrassment. Marcus, maintaining his composure, dismissed the officers and thanked Kate for showing up. That night, as Marcus unpacked in his new home, he reflected on the incident. He had faced prejudice before, but this was different. This was his home, his safe space, and yet he was made to feel unwelcome. He knew he couldn't let this slide, not for himself, but for everyone who had ever been judged unfairly. The next morning, Marcus held a press conference at the precinct. Standing at the podium, he recounted the events of the previous evening, highlighting the dangers of bias and assumptions. "Last night, I was mistaken for a criminal in my own neighborhood because of my skin color," he began, his voice steady but passionate. "This isn't just about me. This is about the countless individuals who face discrimination every day, who are judged not by their actions but by their appearance." His words struck a chord with the community. Eleanor, watching from her living room, felt a pang of guilt as she saw her new neighbor addressing the issue with such grace. She decided to write an apology letter, admitting her mistake and promising to be more open-minded. Over time, Marcus became a beloved figure in the neighborhood, known not just as the chief of police, but as a man who stood up for justice and unity. Eleanor, too, underwent a transformation. She and Marcus eventually struck up a friendship, proving that change was possible when people chose understanding over prejudice. The incident served as a wake-up call for the community and a powerful reminder that everyone deserved respect, regardless of race or background. Marcus's calm yet firm response inspired others to confront their biases and strive for a more inclusive world.